You want to do
I'll
that?
just record to the cloud. Okay.
Okay.
Looks like that's working. And I'm going to share it. And we're going to start our talk on marvelous manta rays. Marvelous and magical manta rays. So, okay, it's now being live streamed. We're setting it up. Just wait 1 second. For those of you who don't do Facebook, we record these and then we typically will pull them off and put them on our YouTube channel so they don't have to live forever. So I overlooked David Cronman, who's been a great volunteer diver and helping us with our shark science education sheets, which you can download, including one on manta rays, on giant manta rays. I don't think we have the Reef Manta Ray fact sheet yet, but we will. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. How's school?
Great. I have some cool new shark photos to share with you later.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Love that show. Okay, so I'm gonna just load up my PowerPoint here and introduce myself and my partner here, Vince Smith of Blue Endeavors. So hi, my name is David McGuire, and I'm broadcasting to you from Kona. We've been doing some diving until pretty big west swell came up and made things murky. But if you saw our YouTube and you looked at Facebook, you can see we had some really great encounters with my friend Bruce Watkins here in Kona with tiger sharks, and working with Shark Research Institute and Charlie Fasano and other local volunteers trying to do pattern matching, identifying individual sharks seasonally, temporally, spatially, and ideally leading to a greater knowledge base that can be applied to conservation. And that's kind of the paradigm of what we're going to talk about tonight and some of the work that we're trying to do, not only in Hawaii, but also in Southern California with seven-gill sharks and also with manta rays. And that's kind of what tonight's talk is about some of our expeditions that we're partnering with Blue Expeditions and Blue Endeavors Expeditions. I'm the founder and director of Shark Stewards. We've been around since 2016, advocating for ocean and shark health. In general, we work in policy, but also education, applying research and increasingly community science or citizen science, using the power of the many, the power of the impassioned to provide data that we can leverage towards increased conservation. Can you see my slides? Give me a thumbs up, anybody? Okay, great. So I'm a research associate at the California Academy of Sciences. I'm a diver. Vince and I were just in Bonaire, where I did rebreather training in preparation for this expedition to the Revillagigedos Islands, Socorro being one of the main islands, so we can get down into deeper water. We can go down longer, really. And also we won't be blowing bubbles that tend to have an adverse effect, particularly on hammerhead sharks. Sometimes the manta rays are a little skittish as well. Sometimes they actually like to frolic in the bubbles. Vincent and I've been friends and partners for several years. We do our Sharktoberfest events and together. And now I'm going to do my scuba instructor license so we can work together in education for primarily high school students and try to harness that energy, that youthful energy towards future marine science and conservation. I'm a National Geographic explorer. I'm an ocean adventurer. And enough about me. Let's talk about manta rays. So we decided that I wanted to call it marvelous mantas, because they really should be called marvelous mobulas, because in 2017 they were redesignated as in the genus Mobula, or the family Mobulidae, but in the genus Mobula. So they used to be called Manta, but now they're Mobula because they're closely related both to each other. The Manta, giant Manta birostris, Mobula birostris, but also alfredi. Those are the two large mantas. They're related also to the eagle rays and are local bat ray in California. So those are all in the Mobulidae, but of course, the Manta Rays are the largest. They are flying fish underwater. They are iconic, amazing animals, incredibly gentle, but also unique because they are zooplanktivores. So they eat plankton and small larval fish for their diet. And they have an extremely efficient and interesting method of consumption of food. And they tend to aggregate, particularly around areas of high concentration of plankton, but also in pinnacles or areas of currents where they can fly around in circles with their mouths open and filter the plankton past a specialized gill mechanism that acts much like a sieve or a baleen on a whale. They are incredible to dive with, which I hope you all have the opportunity at some point. Some are migratory, some are not. The giant manta ray gets almost 30 feet long. It can get up to like 5,000 to 6,000 pounds, a couple tons. The average is more around 15 feet or so, then 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. They are spatially distributed around the world, primarily around the poles, but also into the temperate waters. The giant manta is actually more broadly distributed than the reef mantas, which tend to stay more around areas of coral reefs primarily. So these, by having this behavior of either migration or territory around an area, they're also highly vulnerable to overfishing. They have increasing threats of many sharks, unfortunately, have experienced in the past 50 years. They give live birth. They have a long gestation period of well over 12 months, sometimes as long as 15 months. The babies come out with their wings rolled up like little tacos, and they just kind of fly out and are fully formed and prepared to do their job filtering plankton. They're easily confused, the two species of Mobula, a giant Mobula, when they're smaller. But they do have distinct patterns that helps us identify the difference between the two. Let me go back. Something's going on. My screen froze up. There we go. So one of the really cool things about manta rays also is they have a distinct pattern. And the giant manta has this these kind of shoulder markings that come down and form a little bit more of a chevron pattern. The ventral or undersurface has a unique spotting pattern, particularly around their gill brachia, which are these large structures here, how they filter water. They're breathing while they're feeding. So they feed around in these with their mouths open, and they have these specialized cephalic foils in their mouths that actually roll up to accommodate more efficient swimming when they're migrating or when they're not feeding. So it's a very unique adaptation. They're the only example in the elasmobranchi, the groups of sharks and rays that actually have 3 sets of paired fins. And so in addition to their dorsal fins and their pectoral fins, which are actually fused almost to their head in a wing-like pattern, they also have this highly unique and specialized fins that aid in their feedings. Their eyes are large and placed at the side of their heads. And they have a large tail that also is one of the ways you can tell the difference. There's a little bulb on the giant manta at the into the dorsal surface. So this shows the distribution of the giant manta, circumpolar, circumequatorial, with also ranges into the temperate zones. But they also tend to have hot spots such as Madagascar, Mozambique, the Maldives, and the Indian Ocean, around Australia, particularly in the Coral Triangle. They once had a very large population, islands such as Borneo, Vanuatu, Philippines. And then also they live in the Atlantic coast, the north, that would be the northeast Atlantic, I guess, right? No, northwest Atlantic. So on the east coast of North America. And then of course here in the Hawaiian Islands as well. The Reef Manta, I spoke a little bit, it's slightly smaller. They still get well over almost 2 tons. They average more around 11 to 15 feet in length. Their pattern is slightly different. They had this kind of more of a V pattern as opposed to like the T pattern. It's slightly more speckled. And so when you see the adults, you actually can distinguish the two pretty readily. But as I said, when they're juveniles or subadults, they're easily confused between the two. Let's get a really good photograph or good look at them. So again, they have a unique ventral pattern, spotting pattern, which helps us identify them. This shows the distribution of Mobula alfredi. Again, primarily more around the equator, also more around the Indian Ocean and the Coral Triangle, although they also occur in here in Hawaii as well. So they are actually very gentle, very beautiful, divers love them, and they're highly valuable as a source of income to dive tour operators. Unfortunately, they are increasingly threatened. They're listed as vulnerable by the International Union of Conservation of Nature. We're listed under the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species, CITES, which regulates trade. And again, primarily those gill rakers, which are used for traditional Chinese medicine. And increasingly, the trade has escalated in the past 2 decades associated with wealth in Asia, but ironically, with the increase of respiratory diseases because of industrialization, more cars, more pollution in China. So these traditional medicines are in high demand, not only for these species, but other species of wildlife. The giant manta is listed as, endangered. These are increasingly rare. They are eaten by some cultures in Southeast Asia, Philippines, but primarily the threats are first due to bycatch or accidental catch, where they're entrained in nets because they have to swim to breathe. And so they drown underwater in gill nets, in long line nets, but also, as I said, increasingly because of the gill raker trade. I took this photograph in Malaysia on a street, it's just a dry seafood market along with shark fins. Highly valuable, can be up to $1,500 US a kilogram. And there's something like 5,000 tons of these gill rakers themselves, which only make up a small percentage of the animal's weight. So they're becoming critically endangered. A lot of our photographs that I'm showing also are from the Manta Trust, which is a nonprofit based in Thailand and in Mozambique that's done a lot of work as well as conservation. And they have the Manta Tracker project, which we will be using the software for the database for this photo ID project and this expedition that we'll be doing with Blue Endeavors. An emergent threat for all filter feeders, but in particular, Manta Rays is plastic. So sometimes on the tides, you'll literally see a cloud of broken up microplastics or macroplastics in this case. And so while they're out there filter feeding their plankton and their larval fish, they're getting tons of plastic, which are poisoning them, as well as clogging up their gills and sometimes even choking them through their digestive tract. I'm going to turn this over to Vince in a minute. This is an example from Manta Trust of 6 different manta rays that show that ventral surface and that pattern marking. They're born with a unique series of spots. They don't change very much over time. So they're a really convenient way to identify individuals. Plus their behavior, they just love to fly around in circles. So if you get in a good spot, like a cleaning station where cleaning wrasses are, or a feeding area, they just keep coming back so you get a better and better photograph, particularly at night here in Hawaii. It's a big tourist attraction. they'll literally barrel roll. And so you just get this perfect shot of their ventral surface. So it's like a leopard spots, it's like a tiger stripes, it's like a white shark's fin. These spots help us identify individuals. A lot of this algorithm and this pattern recognition was identified through whale flukes. So in this case, humpback whales. And there's a group that we've worked with, Happy Whale, Dr. Rosenberg, who's done work around the world providing information on these populations, like here off Kona, where the humpback whales come from Alaska to gestate and give birth, like the ones that come from Costa Rica to our greater farallons. So we're able to track these animals through the use of community science or citizen science contributed photographs. So I think I'm going to kick out right now and introduce my colleague and friend, Vince Smith of Blue Endeavors. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and we will, keep a log of the text and can send that to people as well as the recording. Over to you, Vince.
Oh, thank you, David. And thank you all for taking the time on your busy evenings to join us tonight. So again, as David mentioned, I'm Vince Smith. I founded Blue Endeavors just a little over 10 years ago and really started the organization to have proactive projects that students and community scientists could work on to really start having an impact and change the downward trajectory of what was happening in our oceans. In 2016, we were in Mexico working with a Mexican biologist who was studying the giant mantas. And as you learned a little bit tonight, what the scientist was looking for was that pattern recognition and doing it using photographs and field notes, which is very labor intensive. So we started a project to see if we could bring some more modern technology to this cause to really facilitate the amount of data that we can collect. And that is open source data that can be used to both create marine protected areas, which is going to be essential in the future survival and health of our oceans, as well as advancing science. Fast forward to working with Shark Stewards in this new collaboration. The project has become the Ocean Giants Project. And really what this is a part of and what we wanted to share tonight was kind of our long-term view of what we would like to do to really facilitate the collection of these large data sets. So our first part of this project, as David mentioned, the giant mantas will come right up to you. They make really easy test subjects for us because they like to show their bellies. They are engaging with the divers. And so a few years ago in 2019, we actually started prototype testing hardware to use iPads underwater to not only take photos, but to complete pattern recognition and try to collaborate that or to merge the
they are engaging with the divers
data. And so, I'm getting a little bit of a feedback loop there. Sorry. And that data would be things like location of the manta, depth, temperature. And so we recently, the first prototype was unsuccessful, as many prototypes too are back in 2019. And we are coming back here to Socorro this summer with Shark Steward to both collect more data the traditional way on mantas to test out and utilize some new databases that are that Shark Stewards has been working with that are now available to us, and testing a second version of a prototype on hardware to make everyone's data collection significantly easier. That second prototype is actually being worked on by a class at UC Berkeley of engineers who have taken our original design and are currently working to make improvements. We are going to have a working prototype coming out this summer, which we're hoping to test in Socorro. And the long-term goal of that project is to revise the prototypes to the point to where we can bring them to market using a crowd-funded project. So if you look in the photo I brought up, this was from the 2019 expedition. That's actually a high school student with the slate in his hand, and his buddy is taking a photo to identify which individual that is, and he's collecting data as far as estimated measurement on the manta, temperature, depth, location, a lot of the different factors. I will say that trip is going out this June 12th. Today, we just got the last few deposits for space on that trip. But if you are interested in joining this summer's expedition, it's only a little over 2.5 months away. We are taking a wait list. So typically when we run these large expeditions, when it gets close to the trip, we will have some folks drop off, and we're gonna go to the wait list in order of priority of who's reached out to us saying that they're interested. So even though we don't have a spot that's open currently, please reach out to us if you're interested in coming out this summer. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about, this is the second prototype. As you can see, we're trying to take more accurate measurements with the hardware on the size of the mantas. Up to this point, it's typically having a dive buddy or research assistant swimming close to the manta to take an estimated measurement of size. So we're hoping to really improve the quality of the data that we're collecting, as well as really make it very easy for recreational divers and really any interested, informed, conscientious recreational diver to start collecting data to add to these data sets. So I will say it's part of a 3-year project that we're proposing. I'm going to let David talk about some of his work in Hawaii. So this summer we're going to Socorro with the giant mantas. The plan is that the summer of 2023 we're going to be going to Hawaii to test future versions of the hardware, again, improve the software and include other species, including tiger sharks. And in 2024, we've actually already booked the trip to go out to the Silver Bank with the humpback whales to, again, test the hardware and software. If you're not familiar with Silver Bank, it's halfway between Turks and Caicos, Dominican Republic, and it's where about 3,000 humpbacks go to mate, have their young. This one we're not going to be on scuba for. This is just a free diving / snorkeling expedition. But the whales come right up to you. I mean, it's a pretty shallow part of the ocean. It's only about 80 feet deep. And the whales are very curious about us and what we're doing out there. So just like the mantas make really easy test subjects, so do the humpback whales. So if you're interested in coming out with us to Hawaii next summer or out next spring, March of 2024 with the humpbacks, again, we're starting a contact list. So as soon as we're able to start taking deposits for those trips and have a little more information about final accommodations, prices, everything else, we're going to go through the list and give everyone who's reached out to us priority to come out with us and be a part of this great project. So I'm going to turn it back over to David. If you want to maybe talk about some of the work in Hawaii and talk to us a little bit about tiger sharks.
Okay, yeah, great, Vince. And so people can contact you about expeditions or getting on the waiting list.
Yeah, so I'll put it in the chat. I'm going to put my email. And I love that we already have put me on the list, Vince. Awesome. So I'm going to put it in the chat. I'll put my email. We also, Blue Endeavors just launched a brand new website. So we do, if you look in the new website under Toolkit, under Expeditions, you'll see Socorro. There's actually a form there that you can fill out, which will give us a little bit of contact information about you. And from that form, we'll add you to the wait list for the Socorro project. We don't have the Silver Banks up yet or the Hawaii expedition up yet. But as soon as we do, you can use a form. You could reach out to us through the Blue Endeavors website or me directly at vince@blue-endeavors.org. And one little plug, as David mentioned, we are an ocean conservation, restoration, education nonprofit. So if you are interested in contributing to any of these projects directly, or perhaps sponsoring some students, either high school, middle school, college students interested in participating, you can join. There's actually a free membership that gives you access to everything we're doing. But you can, for as little as $10 a month, support and focus your donations on a group of your choice. And we have lots of free giveaways and perks for our monthly donors. So
Great. Yeah, and I definitely want to attest that the seminars that Blue Endeavors puts on are super informative. He has marine biologists. I've given one at sharks. So as members, people get to tune in and actually engage and learn a lot, particularly about Hawaiian fish, which I actually learned quite a bit before I started working over here. So definitely encourage you to check out the blueendeavors.org website. Hopefully we'll be doing a Sharktoberfest, maybe in Seattle this year, doing education events and dives in not in Southern California, in Manta Ray. So thanks, Vince. I think first I'll just go to, I'm gonna play a video that just shows some of the beauty and really the wonder of where this trip is going. It's actually gratifying, sad for people who want to join us, but that suddenly the trip filled up. We've been trying to get people to give their deposits for this trip, and it sounds like all the students and their parents have, so there's a waiting list, but that's a good sign. But Blue Endeavors and Shark Stewards is looking to actually expand our relationship, our partnership, and teach and bring people out into the ocean in future expeditions. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the work that we're planning for the next couple of years. We're also looking to, we're in the midst of applying to a grant with the Schmidt Foundation and also other granting organizations to support this work. It's ideally we'll be able to provide scholarships or assistance to underserved students instead of just people who could pay their way, because it's expensive to learn how to dive. Sometimes it's expensive to go on boats or these trips. So the goal would be to bring this to people who generally can't afford it. So that will be ideally through finding that landing on that sweet spot grant or white knight donor. So this is a promotional video from the Nautilus fleet that will be joining on this year and hopefully other years to come. They also operate vessels in the White Shark trips out to Guadalupe Island and Baja, as well as Copos Island, where Vince has done quite a bit of diving. That's a lot.
They're right there, like right there in my face. It's like beautiful, beautiful.
So friendly, love the bubbles, showing off his belly. Epic.
This past week has been everything I hoped and more. Basically seen every creature that Socorro Islands has to offer. It's a special place. There are very few places in the world now that are as untouched as the Socorro Islands.
This is absolutely incredible. One of the most amazing experiences of my life.
The Socorro Islands are a very impressive place. It's a magical location that allows nature to express itself. It brings emotions from deep within your belly. But perhaps the best part of the experience is to be able to see that in a very professional, safe, enjoyable atmosphere that really is created by the Nautilus crew and team.
Well, I hope you got a chance to see that for those of us who are watching us on Facebook. And is that hosted on the Blue Endeavors website also, Vince?
That one's not on the Blue Endeavors website. I believe you might be able to find it on the Nautilus website as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure they have a YouTube channel as well. So
Yeah,
they're
they created a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's really well done. So I'm going to kind of go back to my screen share, but I did want to tell a little story. The first time I went to the Reviajeros was right out of college in 1986. I sailed to Tahiti, and we stopped along the way. We stopped at Guadalupe, and this was before there were a lot of white sharks because they'd been fished out, as they had off Santa Barbara, where I went to school and lived commercially. And the sharks started to come back in the 2000s, really rebound once they'd been protected, both by the United States as well as Mexico. But so I dove these areas and like full on adventure, had no idea, just the magnitude of these large pelagic fish. When we got to the Reviajeros, it was not yet a protected area, but they have a naval base, and so we had a fairly small sailboat, and just anchored in places. And I went diving, and I was just blown away, like humpback whales, hammerhead sharks, the Manta Rays, large tuna. I mean, it's one of the most productive areas in the world because of upwelling, which is why the Manta Rays like it so much, because of that large concentrations of plankton. It really is an extraordinary place to visit. I've been there since, again, on a private sailboat, only was an expedition. And it's an island group, an archipelago, about 220 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas. It's in it's considered Mexican national waters. It became a World Heritage Site in the early 2000s, a fully marine protected area just a few years ago. There's a great film that was in our International Ocean Film Festival called Mexico Pelagico, which I encourage you to see, that really shows in high definition some of these amazing scenes that you just experienced a little bit in that video. But it is one of the few areas that really is replete with marine megafauna. I mean, it's has so many humpback whales that migrate there, large schools of scalloped hammerheads, great hammerheads, and then the other species of sharks like Galapagos, duskies, occasionally some white sharks, silkies, and of course, one of the larger aggregations of manta rays on the planet, which does not number in large numbers. There is not an estimate I could find of global population of manta rays, but they were included in that Nature study last year that 70% of their biomass is gone. I mean, 70% of them have disappeared in the last 50 years of fishing. So I hope that people get a chance, if not to go in person, check out the films that have been done on it. Go to the Nautilus YouTube channel. I've got one that I worked on that's really old, standard definition. But I'm looking forward to going again because it's still one of my favorite places to dive. And we went on to dive the Marquesas on this sailing trip, the Tuamotus, which is where about 10 or 15 years later, I made Shark Stewards of the Reef and really founded the organization to ban shark finning and work in marine protected creating marine protected areas. But then we went on to Tahiti, sailed the Tahitian group, came out to Hawaii, dove, and everybody would ask me, what was your favorite place? And it was the Revillagigedos. That rock, Roca Partida, which means departure rock, usually it's like one of the last places. That's where you see all the schooling hammerheads down deep. It's just such a beautiful, clear water favorite, and it's one of my favorite places to dive. And now it's fully protected and patrolled by the Mexican government. So in perpetuity, ideally, people will be able to visit and experience this wildlife. So can somebody give me a thumbs up? Can you see oceanic whitetip? Great, thanks. So I've had the good fortune to revisit Hawaii, actually after spending a lot of time here about 15 years ago when we were working in Tahiti and French Polynesia. There was a big gap since Shark Stewards began focusing on Southeast Asia, protecting the coral triangle and trying to work in intervening the shark fin trade in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Because of COVID, I wasn't able to travel. I had a couple of students that were working on projects. They needed to do coral reef work. And I got invited over by some good friends and were able to, learn about this aggregation of tiger sharks, as well as oceanic whitetips like this amazing species, which maybe 99% disappeared from the planet, critically endangered, really magnetic, majestic animals, overfished. We've been working on zero retention. They are supposed to be protected fully, but under CITES, CITES only works on trade. So if the fins are off, it's difficult to enforce. Hawaii just passed a law this January that there is no recreational fishing of sharks in Hawaiian waters, which joins the commercial fishing ban that we worked on about 5 years ago. So really Hawaii is a leader in shark protection. Hawaii and Hawaiians have a strong connection to sharks. They believe they have a spiritual connection, that their ancestors, maybe in the form of sharks, are come to take that form and protect them. There's a strong cultural bond, and many Hawaiians love sharks and they don't want to kill them. So we had that benefit. Many cultural leaders came out in support of protecting sharks. And we hope that we can apply that cultural love to other cultures, that we can learn from the Hawaiians and other native peoples to have respect and reverence and even a spiritual connection to wildlife, and look at them as something that is worth protecting, worth coexisting with in their own right, as opposed to looking at them as a commodity, as so many cultures, including we Westerners, do. So I really enjoyed diving here. I was just with 3 large tiger sharks this week. Got some beautiful footage. If you look at the YouTube I posted, these big tiger sharks, almost all are females. Many come early in their own sort of migration, their Sharktober migration, from the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, the Papahanaumokuakea, which is a marine national monument, featured in Shark Stewards of the Reef 15 years ago. We're hoping to make a new film because there's a proposal to increase protections under our National Marine Sanctuaries Act in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. It's where sea turtles breed, it's where monk seals breed, it's where a lot of these large sharks come, including Galapagos and tigers, but also it's an area of high impact primarily because of fishing nets, ghost nets. They are protected. There has been poaching in our state waters here, but one of the big threats is from these plastic drift nets that come in and envelop the reefs, tangle up in wildlife like sharks, like manta rays and sea turtles and other air breathers, but also really impacting the coral on the windward side of the island. So this National Marine Sanctuary Act will actually provide a lot more funding for research as well as mitigation. During COVID, NOAA wasn't able to visit the islands. They went last year, and I forget the figure, but it was over 100,000 pounds of drift nets and plastic were removed from the reefs. So these Kapuna Islands and Northwest Hawaiian Islands are protected. Now there is a movement to protect them even further so that the animals that live there will be protected, but as well as the animals that leave there. like the tiger sharks that come down in the summer. We're just starting to see the arrival and visit the main Hawaiian Islands. So there's a large group of volunteer divers who are taking photographs and starting to enter them in a manual database, looking at photos and looking at patterns, scarring sometimes, but also patterns in their stripes. There's a group of community science, but mostly tour operators who've been here in Kona also doing Manta Ray studies and looking at that spotting pattern and comparing them over time. We're hoping to combine these two programs, partner with them, these groups, and use this algorithm that's been developed under WildMe that can automatically identify these species. We'll be beta testing that with the Manta tracker through Manta Trust on our Socorro expedition. Mantas are a lot easier to identify. They're a lot easier to take photographs of. And these community engagement projects actually provide incredibly valuable data that is not available in the typical scientific database. So there's more of us as volunteer divers. There's more of us with GoPros now. And by people engaging, they actually also get more intrigued, involved, inspired to protect these sensitive taxa, including whale sharks, basking sharks, who also have these unique patterns. So this algorithm is also being applied to whale sharks in the Maldives. We're going to try this in Socorro again. So it's not just mantas. The students will be focusing on the mantas, but we're hoping to apply this technology, both the hardware and the software, to these other species so that we can add to the database so that managers will have more information to better protect them. So just like this tiger and the leopards, the whale sharks have this unique spotting pattern, and there are certain areas that the algorithm looks at and then scans. And so you just need to get around the gill areas on the whale sharks, other areas, the ventral area, of course, on manta rays, and the algorithm does its work. So this is an example from Shark Research Institute's program here on Kona, where they actually are looking at certain areas also, but it's more of a manual process. So the goal will be to work with them as they do this with divers who are going in, providing photographs and naming these sharks to run this through this program, which will give us more instantaneous results and probably more resilient, because you don't have to have two sides of the animal. You often don't even have to have the whole picture. You can just grab one area and identify it. So it's a really fun way to identify sharks, but also to use that power of the many towards conservation, and also spread that word that sharks aren't dangerous, they're endangered. Sharks are important for the health of the ocean ecosystems, and we need to start changing our minds about it. How we look at sharks. We shouldn't fear them, we should be afraid for them. And especially the white sharks that have gotten the great wrath, but thanks to protections in California and in Hawaii, and even internationally through CITES, white sharks are starting to at least recover in the Northeast Pacific, but they were almost gone, almost completely hunted out when I was an undergraduate student. We used to see white sharks landed in Santa Barbara Harbor, and if you ate a fish taco or if you ate fish and chips, you were probably eating great white shark along the Santa Barbara Ventura waterfront at the time. We also lead trips out to the Farallon Islands, which is a hot spot for white sharks. Some of them come all the way here to Hawaii and then back in this incredible migration. They go up to the Kapuna Islands where they're feeding. They typically do not overwinter, although there was an unusual sighting of a female adult white shark here this winter that was taken by a friend of mine, Kona, a rare sighting. But these white sharks would show up every year, and the program started by what then called the Point Reyes Bird Observatory and Fish and Wildlife, is now Point Blue, and the Stanford Italian Pacific Predators, used to identify through fin matching by taking photographs of the fin, because it's like a fingerprint. But now this too, because of scarring, we can apply these algorithms to identify individual sharks over time. So if people are interested in joining me on an education trip this fall, we lead trips every September weekend in October, learning, but also recording photographs of sharks using our ROV. We have a permit to do this, and we've identified several new individuals of sharks through their scarring pattern. Why are we doing this? Well, sharks are amazing. Sharks are cool. It's exciting to be in the water with sharks, but increasingly, sharks are threatened with extinction. They are among the most vulnerable taxa in the ocean. They're also one of the most important taxa in the ocean, or group of fish, because they have all of these ecosystem services they provide, as well as their impacts on other species and the ecosystems like coral reefs or kelp beds that they live in. So by removing these species, you're actually having a greater impact on that ecosystem, because you're going to see a concomitant or an adjoining or associated extinction or disturbance or distribution change in that ecosystem. So having sharks means the ocean is healthier, more intact, and healthier for humans. 355 species are now threatened with extinction. That's about a third of the overall species of sharks and rays. It's a critical problem facing our sharks and rays, and that's why we need these marine protected areas, like the Farallon Islands, like the Revillagigedos. We need to increase these protected areas to protect global health, including oxygen and food production. So about 71% of our planet is ocean. There's about 80% unexplored and less than 10% protected, really around 7%, and half of that truly protected and no take reserve. So part of our program in doing this is to visit marine protected areas like in California or the Revillagigedos and document data, document species, or increase marine protection, such as the new Chumash National Marine Sanctuary in California, the Papahanaumokuakea National Marine Sanctuary proposed in Hawaii, and also marine protected areas in the Coral Triangle, the areas of highest biological diversity on the planet. We've had a lot of progress since we last presented. The Drift Net Modernization and Bycatch Reduction Act, reintroduced by Senator Feinstein, has passed through the Senate and House, embedded in other bills, and is waiting for the two bills to be reconciled and passed through to the president to sign. That would eliminate the last deadly fishery off the West Coast, the only gillnet fishery that is responsible for thousands and thousands of deaths of bycatch, of blue sharks, sea turtles, whales, seabirds, and other taxa. So by getting rid of this fishery that is intended for swordfish, it's going to protect a lot of other species. Other good news is the Shark Fin Sales and Elimination Act has also passed through the House and the Senate for the first time after 4 introductions. And that too, that language will be reconciled, and we will follow Canada and the UK to be a large nation that will ban the sale and trade of shark fin. And I hope very soon that that will reach the president's desk and receive his signature. And we can move on after working on this for 12 years to ban the sale of and trade of shark fin, and work in other countries such as Singapore and China to reduce consumption and trade of these incredibly important, but also incredibly valuable species. So the shark fin trade is still going on. It's a gold rush, as well as the gill net, or the gill rakers, the manta ray gill rakers. So by prohibiting this trade, making it illegal, it'll help protect these incredibly important and beautiful animals. So you can help us save sharks. Go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, and support Blue Endeavors, as well as Shark Stewards. We're a largely volunteer organization. Many are on this call now, working to record data, to help us with our education events like the Ocean Film Festival, to raise money, to become an advocate where you are. We have chapters all around the world that help support shark fin trade bans, regulation, as well as consumption patterns, reducing consumption, for example, squalene in cosmetics, which is derived from shark liver. Of course, shark fin trade, we've helped pass 14 shark fin trade bans in the US. By having a federal bill, we'll be telling the world, including our brothers and sisters over in China, that our Chinese American population does not want to eat this dish It is not cool. It does not have prestige. It actually is really bad, and it's bad for you. We have a lot of work cut out for us, but we also have a lot of fun because we get to do expeditions like this to reach really great people like in this photograph who are passionate about saving ocean health, and that includes you. And so thanks for joining us. Thanks for hopefully joining us on a future expedition, our education events, working like David from afar, from Florida, like many of you in other states and even countries. And I want to thank our mothership, the Earth Island Institute, for housing shark stewards in Berkeley and these funding agencies, but also particularly the sharks themselves. So thanks for listening. Follow us on social media, and hopefully we're going to have a really cool film to show after this expedition to Socorro that you'll either see online or in our film festival next year. So back to you, Vince. Did I forget anything?
No, that was a wonderful summary of the importance of the work we're doing, and we're honored to be a part of the project in this collaboration with Shark Stewards. So thank you so much for hosting this event tonight.
Yeah, it's really fun, and we've had a lot of great events in the past, and looking forward to doing live Sharktoberfest events. We will definitely have one planned to do with the National Marine Sanctuary in October, in the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary. But hopefully we'll be able to do one up in Seattle or maybe down at the Birch in San Diego. We're increasingly working more in San Diego again with the 7-gill sharks as part of this California Shark Watch program. So people are down there, they want to go diving, you can help identify individuals. Maria also hosts beach cleanups. We have our Run for Sharks every fall. It's a great family kid event, and also it's a health fair. So we're looking for a corporate sponsor. If anybody knows someone who wants to chip in and support the annual Run for Sharks and health fair, there's the, I didn't mean to just send it to Anne. It's runforsharks.org. I forget the date. Maria, when's the Run for Sharks?
Is
October what?
October 22nd,
October
Saturday.
22nd. So it's a lot of fun in Newport Dunes, Newport Beach. We do cleanups, and there's doctors and nurses and first responders, because Maria was at the front end of a shark experience. And so they kind of do reenactments of how to do triage, how to put on a tourniquet. And so it's also beneficial, like in, just in learning about emergency management. So I encourage you to sign up. We need volunteers in Southern California as well. So if you have your own special talent, we have a lot of kids involved, beach cleanups in San Francisco as well, and school events are increasing. So if you want to learn about our events, they're of course on social media, as well as on our website, sharkstewards.org. So I think without any further ado, I hope you can follow us. We might even try to do some live casting from the boat. I've done this in the past from the Galapagos. Things don't always work, but we'll do our best to try to share our experiences with you, for those of you who can't join us out in the field, but can join us virtually. So thank you again, everyone. We'll do another one of these. We do these about once a month on different topics. This one was on manta rays, of course, but we'll be doing one, I think, on 7-gill sharks next. So watch for that. Sign up to blueendeavors.org newsletter and sharkstewards.org, our newsletter. Follow us on social media and you'll see when that next event is. Or see you in San Francisco, April 8th through 10th at the International Ocean Film Festival, where I'll be hosting a set of shark films, as well as having a panel discussion on sharks and shark conservation. It's a lot of fun, educational, informational, and it always has an action component.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you again, Vince and Blue Endeavors. Thanks for all the team here on the Zoom call, as well as you out there in Facebook world.
Nice to see you, David. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Anna. Bye. Aloha.
Awesome. Thank you.